So, are we allowed to think aloud here?
Yes.
Yes, you're allowed to think as aloud as you can.
Right.
I think a lot of Christians, actually, there's a lot of good household Christians that don't do that stay to their morals and the way they believe. Not definitely not all of America, definitely not anything like that. But I really think what's happened in the last couple years is the backlash or the
Counterculture.
or no. What I'm trying to say is science, really.
Yeah.
So this whole idea of you either believe in science or you believe in religion,
Right.
and if you're dumb and if you're spiritual and you're superstitious and you don't really understand life, go ahead and go with religion. And a lot of people, and it's mostly people who come from Christian backgrounds, as you were saying, that say stuff like, oh, religion just there for for us to try to find meaning in life when there really isn't any, and we're all coming from this and that. And so they always say there's no God, there's the Big Bang.
Right.
And it's like, why can't there be God and the Big Bang? If anything, I think the Big Bang, it proves that God exists.
Right. So the thing is that in the book Genesis, it says God made the world in 6 days. And when Charles Darwin came up with a theory of evolution, that totally debunked that perception. And that was the initial starting point of this sort of religion is inconsistent with science. But actually, Islam is not only mentions evolution in the Quran, but it mentions the Big Bang. And I can pull up a verse of the Quran. Hold up.
And it's kind of crazy because, the opposite is if you believe in science, if you believe in facts, bro. It's all about science and facts. And that's when you're smart. That's when you're intelligent.
Yeah.
When in reality, when you look at science and when you look at the Big Bang and when you look at the moon and the sun and the amount of miles away and the light speed away, and you're just like the speed of light and the speed of sound, and you actually, through the lens of being appreciative of God, go, wow, look at the amazing things that this God can do, that we get to be in awe of, and how science and math is the language of science. It's such a different perspective of being either that screw science, I'm all about God, or screw God, I'm all about science. That's just not how it should be.
Yeah, like even though Islam doesn't have
Pull it up.
Yeah. It's Surah Anbiya. It says, إِوَلَمْ يُرَى إِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ كَانَتَا رَتْقًا فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. Do not the disbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were a closed up mass, and then we opened them out, and we made everything from water, every living thing. And you see how the similitude and the congruence between the Big Bang Theory and that very verse. We made everything from a closed up mass, the point of singularity where the Big Bang initiated. And we made everything from water. After the heavy bombardment period, when the earth was first forming, it was a volcanic state, and then it became all water. And that's when, we went from a chemical makeup of the earth to a biological makeup. It's called abiogenesis. Essentially, RNA binded with polymers in the ocean and created the first DNA and the first living cells. And God says, I also made you from clay. And clay were the first monomers, essentially, that make up those RNA molecules. And that was the first, it's called the RNA hypothesis of the world. And that's the most prevalent theory of how we went from a chemical makeup to a biological makeup. And these theories are 40, 50, 60 years old. And the Quran is 1400 years old. And so we've seen the science within the Quran for many years. Before our most contemporary, our most advanced scientific theories have come up with this.
Wait, what were you about to say? Sorry.
But what I wanted to say is, even though not everything has clear evidence or anything like that, I would combine it to how do you know how do you know that your parents are actually your biological parents? Like you never question it. You never ask the idea of, oh, I'm gonna take a DNA test because I don't know if they're my parents or not. But no, they're your parents because you don't even have to question it. So it's kind of like that perspective of if you have that love and you have like that perspective towards God, you're not even gonna question it. That's what we're trying to reach to, So that's kind of like a different perspective that I was recently thinking about. It's different because you don't actually have to have the factual evidence of those certain things to know that it exists or doesn't exist.
I agree with you that you don't need to have all the factual evidence, but I do think questioning is important. I do think you
Absolutely.
should question, and
Yes.
you have to question everything around you, and being able to marvel because God Himself in the Quran forces us in a way. He doesn't force us, but He tells us like, go out and see how creation began. See how I created the heavens and the earth and the sky and the moon and the sun. Like go see, find evidence.
You
of
have
Allah
to ponder.
says, you look out in the world and observe the world, and you will find confirmation of the one true God. And modern scientists, obviously, like it's on the unseen, right? And people are like, my atheist friends are like, well, if science is so congruent with Islam, then why can't we see God? What evidence of there is God? But you also believe in the Big Bang, right? And they're like, of course we believe in the Big Bang. It's science. But were you there to see the Big Bang? How do you know there was the Big Bang? You know it because theoretical physicists conducted scientific experiments in contemporary society, and that they extrapolated those scientific principles to what would have happened 4.6 billion years ago when the Earth formed, and 14.3 billion years ago when the Big Bang happened.
And it's funny because a lot of our atheist friends that you and I, all of us share, will say stuff like, God isn't real, we're all made out of stardust. Okay, open up the Quran, it will tell you that we're made out of stardust.
Exactly.
That's not something foreign to us. There's so much, and we could talk about so many things that the Quran states about our existence that is scientifically proven. Mm-hmm. And one thing I was telling my friend the other day is how we believe that you should eat when you sit down. And he was like, oh, well, that's not scientifically proven that it's better for you. It's like, okay, well, a couple years, just 100 years ago or something, the Quran was saying that the universe is expanding and it is forever expanding. And that modern science at that time was saying that the universe is stagnant. Yeah. And so back then, people would have been like, oh, look, the Quran is wrong. Look, it's saying that the universe is expanding and forever expanding, when really, through Isaac Newton and all these other physicists, the universe is stagnant. Now we know that the universe is constantly expanding.
And not only that, before the Big Bang Theory, it was called the static model of the universe. Not only did they not know it was expanding, but they thought that the universe has always existed and it will forever exist. And anti-religious people were like, well, how can they be a creator? And 20 years later, in the 1960s, the Big Bang Theory was proven, and it was more consistent with the evidence. What's
funny is that scientists in the last 20 years or so, last 2 decades or 3, were trying to recreate the Big Bang in a lab. Mm-hmm. The only way for the Big Bang Theory to have happened, what these scientists concluded, is that for this photon to go against its natural state and to remain existent even when it's supposed to disappear.
Right.
Because they kept doing the research, or they kept doing the study over and over again. It kept disappearing. It kept going away without it having its counterpart. And so they found that if it stays, that's when the explosion happens. That's when such a dense mass, from one single state, explodes. It's like, dude, so you're telling me that the Big Bang Theory happened out of unnatural circumstances that are basically impossible to recreate in a lab, and that there had to be something that put its hands into it and made sure that it would happen that way.
Right. It doesn't necessarily, that's the one thing that's missing from all this, right? Scientists were like, oh, this is just a bunch of lucky chance that the world, it's called like entropy, right? You go from a high entropy state to a low entropy state. And it's almost impossible for the world to have. It's like, I don't know, one in like a trillion possibility that the Big Bang could have happened. And so, but who was at the helm? It was Allah. Allah allowed all of the necessary elements, all of everything to align for life to exist. It wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't a scientific miracle, because statistically it's impossible. It's literally one in I don't know how many trillion chance that we are existing today.
Very low chance.
And so that's the one piece that's missing. And if you really think about it, everything in this world is cause and effect. So how did that atom exist? That singular atom, right? That photon that you were talking about. Who created that? And the atheists were like, we don't know. Well, everything has a cause and exists, and the only thing that's eternal is Allah. So He put that into place.
And also, like, even with scientists, the theories have been changing all the time. So if you're saying you believe in science, it's not 100% accurate the whole time. So that's something also that you gotta, keep your eyes open on.
And even the teachings of the Quran, like at first, like even the basic teachings, not just the scientific hypotheses that have been proven true, but in the month of Ramadan, we fast. For years and years, we thought that fasting was, why would you not eat? You have to eat. But the scientific evidence today, fasting is a trend. All these fitness junkies and everyone is hopping on the trend. But we've been doing this for 1,400 years.
And fasting's better for your memory. It's better for your health. Better for your heart rate, for your blood pressure, everything. It's
everything.
Remember when we were in school and everyone would be like, dude, you need to eat. Like, I would die if I didn't eat.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you're doing this. It's like, oh my God. Now they're doing it to lose weight. It's
Right,
funny.
exactly.
You get used to it.
Let me show you guys something really cool. So, God in the Quran says, وَكُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ. When God is explaining the planets, He says that and that they swim in orbit.
Yeah.
Let me show you guys what Albert Einstein said when Albert Einstein had the new theory of
General theory of relativity.
General theory of relativity, and afterwards he did the theory of gravity, the new theory of gravity that would explain how gravity works in space, not just on Earth and in some of the planets. So.
I mean, yeah, it's crazy though, because during the Holy Prophet's time, it was a a lot of people still were on the heliocentric model of the universe. And the Quran, or the geocentric model, excuse me. And we already knew that was incorrect.
You know what's funny is that when one of the top physicists, and let's just act like this right here is the sun,
Okay.
and that's how planets would orbit the sun's gravity. And what's funny is that when one of the top physicists was talking about this, who, by the way, is an atheist, I think his name's like Seth, I don't remember his name, I'm not going to say it, but he said, and they swim in a pool of gravity around the sun. Like, he was using the same words, the same verbiage as God was when explaining how the universe, how the planets and their relationship to the sun is.
Right.
Like, stuff's crazy, man.
And a pool is totally consistent with that verbiage is totally consistent with, because the orbits are not perfect circles; they're eccentric. They're not. Actually, the Earth is the one planet that has almost close to a perfect circle, but none of the other planets do.
I wish I could find a photo of what you're saying, because yeah, exactly. They don't. It's kind of almost like this.
Right. Yeah. So Johannes Kepler, he was a astronomer in the 1500s, and he actually came up with that modeling. And we were seeing all of these scientific discoveries come out way after the Quran has already spoke about them. And he found out that as soon as the planet would come closer in its orbit, it would speed up. And that's how gravity, because gravity is exerting its energy on it.
I think his name's Seth Green. Let me see. No, I knew it was the actor. Brian Greene. Brian Greene. Y'all see that stuff? Okay, I'm not gonna get into that. Brian Greene, one of the top physicists in the world today. I mean, he's awesome. He's one of the leading physicists in string theory.